The engine of my SUV was still running, vibrating against the frozen silence of the Aspen night. Outside, the world was a whiteout blizzard, 10 degrees below zero and dropping. Inside the $20 million lodge, I could see them through the floor-to-ceiling glass. My mother, Cynthia, raising a flute of vintage champagne. My sister, Tiffany, laughing as she unpacked her gala dress. My brother, Brandon, throwing another log on the fire. They looked warm. They looked rich. They looked like a family who had just successfully pulled off the perfect con. I looked down at my hand. Resting on the center console were the keys. Not just to my car, but to the only vehicle on this mountain equipped with heavy-duty snow tires and four-wheel drive capable of navigating a Class 4 storm. The limo they had hired for the gala was already gone. They were trapped. And they didn't know it yet because I wasn't walking through that front door to argue. I wasn't going in to beg for the room I paid for. I shifted the gear into reverse. The tires crunched satisfyingly against the packed ice. I wasn't just leaving them. I was leaving them stranded. Before I tell you exactly where I sent the invoice that cost my mother her job and her reputation, drop a comment telling me, what is the most expensive thing a family member has ever stolen from you? I want to see if anyone can beat $50,000. To understand why I left my own mother stranded in a blizzard, you have to understand the pitch she sold me 2 weeks ago. It wasn't just a vacation invitation, it was a performance. Cynthia called me crying, talking about how much she missed our connection. How we needed a healing trip. Just the adults. No screaming grandkids. No stress. Just high-end bonding in Aspen. She found this incredible private lodge. She said. Exclusive. Quiet. But she needed a commitment immediately to secure the reservation. It's $6,000 a person, she had said. Her voice dropping to that conspiratorial whisper she uses when she's asking for money. I know it's steep, Morgan. But isn't our relationship worth it? Think of the memories. I wired her the $6,000 that afternoon. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that, for once, I was being invited as a daughter, not a service provider. I packed cashmere sweaters and books I'd been meaning to read. I turned down a massive corporate launch event for a tech client to clear my schedule. I drove 4 hours through the early stages of a storm, fueled by the naive hope that this time would be different. When I walked through the heavy timber doors of the lodge an hour ago, the noise hit me first. It wasn't the crackle of a fireplace or the clinking of wine glasses. It was the high-pitched, ear-splitting shriek of a toddler having a meltdown. I dropped my bags in the foyer. The living room looked like a bomb had gone off inside a toy store. My sister, Tiffany, was lounging on the sofa, scrolling through her phone while her 3-year-old smeared chocolate on the pristine leather ottoman. My brother, Brandon, was already raiding the wet bar, and there were 5 children running laps around the kitchen island. Cynthia walked out of the kitchen, holding a glass of red wine. She didn't hug me. She didn't ask about the drive. She just gestured vaguely at the chaos. Oh, good. You made it. Can you grab the baby? He smells like he needs a change. I stood there, frozen. Mom, where is the nanny? You said you hired professional help for the kids, so this could be adults only. She took a sip of wine, looking at me over the rim of her glass with a terrifying calmness. Oh. I canceled the service this morning. I realized it was a waste of money since you were coming. You're so good with them, Morgan. And honestly, I thought you'd want the bonding time. I felt the blood drain from my face. You fired the nanny because you expected me to work. I paid $6,000 to be here. Lower your voice, she snapped, the mask of the loving mother slipping instantly. Stop making everything about money. We're family. Family helps each other. Then came the room assignments. Tiffany and her husband got the master suite because they need the space. Brandon got the guest suite because he has a bad back. Cynthia took the loft. And me, she pointed to a narrow door off the mudroom. You're in the bunk room, she said breezily. I opened the door. It wasn't a bedroom. It was a converted pantry with a twin mattress on the floor and no windows. It smelled like ski boots and damp wool. This is a closet, I said, my voice shaking. This is where she laid the trap. She didn't apologize. She didn't look embarrassed. Instead, she looked at me with genuine confusion, as if my objection was the only absurd thing happening. Why are you being so difficult? She asked, sighing, as if she were the victim. You're single. You don't need a view. And besides, you'll be up with the kids most of the night anyway. So it doesn't matter where you sleep. You really need to work on your attitude. Morgan, it's Christmas. Stop trying to ruin it for everyone else. That was the moment the switch flipped. It wasn't just selfishness, it was the normalization of cruelty. In her mind, my pain wasn't a bug in the system. It was a feature. She hadn't just baited me with a luxury vacation. She had lured me into a labor camp and charged me an entrance fee. I looked at her, standing there in her silk blouse, waiting for me to apologize, to put down my bag, to pick up the baby. I smiled. It was the sharpest, coldest smile I have ever worn. You're right, I said. I'll go get settled. I unpacked my bag in the bunk room, stacking my books on the floor, because there wasn't a nightstand. The mattress was thin, the kind you'd find at a summer camp. And the room was freezing. I could hear the wind howling outside, battering against the lodge walls. A constant reminder that the storm was intensifying. But the cold inside the house was worse. When I walked back out into the main living area, the atmosphere had shifted. The chaos of the children was still there, the baby was crying in a playpen. And the twins were building a fort out of the sofa cushions, but the adults were transformed. Tiffany was standing in front of the fireplace, adjusting a sequined floor-length gown that shimmered in the firelight. Brandon was fastening cufflinks on a tuxedo shirt. Cynthia was applying lipstick in the hallway mirror, wearing a fur coat that I knew cost more than my first car. You look nice, I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. Are we dressing up for dinner? Tiffany laughed. A sharp, dismissive sound. We aren't. You're staying here. We have tickets to the Aspen Winter Gala. It's the event of the season. Morgan. Everyone who is anyone will be there. The gala. I looked at Cynthia. Mom. You said this trip was about us connecting. You said we were going to cook dinner and play board games. That was the pitch. Cynthia didn't even turn around. She blotted her lips on a tissue. Plans change, darling. Besides, someone has to watch the children. You can't expect Tiffany and Brandon to miss a networking opportunity. And I certainly can't go alone. There's a frozen pizza in the freezer for you and the kids. Just make sure they're in bed by 8. Outside, headlights swept across the snow-covered windows. A stretch limousine was pulling into the driveway, its long chassis struggling slightly against the accumulating drifts. Our ride is here, Brandon announced, grabbing a bottle of scotch from the bar to take for the road. I watched them gather their coats. They were leaving me. They were literally leaving me trapped in a blizzard with 5 children under the age of 7, with no food prepared, while they went to a party. Wait, I said. You're taking a limo. What if there's an emergency? The storm is getting worse. You have your SUV, Tiffany said, checking her reflection in her phone. Though don't try to drive it. The roads are treacherous. Just stay inside and keep the kids quiet. They swept out the door in a flurry of perfume and cold air. The heavy timber door slammed shut. And the silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator and the low whine of the wind. I walked over to the kitchen island where Cynthia had left her clutch for a moment before leaving. Next to a half-empty wineglass was a piece of paper. It was a printed email confirmation. I picked it up. It was the receipt for the Winter Gala tickets. 3 VIP passes. The date was from 2 weeks ago, the exact same day Cynthia had called me crying about needing a healing trip. I looked at the total at the bottom of the page. $6,000. My hand tightened around the paper. The number wasn't a coincidence. It was exactly the amount I had wired her. She hadn't used my money to rent the lodge. She hadn't used it for groceries or a nanny. She had used my money to buy tickets to a party I wasn't invited to, ensuring that I would be the one financing my own exclusion. I wasn't a guest. I wasn't a daughter. I was the financier and the help. I looked at the receipt. Then at the blizzard raging outside. The anger that had been simmering in my chest went cold. It crystallized into something hard and sharp. I didn't crumble. I didn't cry. I pulled out my phone and checked the time. It was 7 p.m. The gala didn't end until midnight. I had 5 hours. I walked over to the playpen and picked up the baby. Okay, I whispered. Change of plans. I carried the baby back to the playpen and set him down. He looked up at me, confused by the sudden lack of tension in my shoulders. Don't worry, I told him. The cavalry is coming. I didn't call a local babysitter. I didn't call a neighbor. I am an event planner for high net worth individuals. I solve impossible problems for people who don't ask what things cost. I pulled out my phone and scrolled past my family group chat to my professional contacts. I stopped at a number labeled Asset Protection and Domestic Logistics. It was a service called Sentinel. They didn't just provide nannies. They provided crisis management for celebrities and diplomats who needed discretion and capability in extreme environments. Morgan. The dispatcher answered on the first ring. It's Christmas Eve. This better be good. It is, I said, walking to the window to watch the snow bury the driveway. I need an emergency care team deployed to Aspen, North Ridge sector. 3 staff members, pediatric certified, hazard trained, and they need to be able to navigate a Class 4 blizzard. I need them here in 45 minutes. There was a tapping of keys on the other end. The roads are closing. Morgan, we'd have to send the Snowcat unit. That's hazard pay. You're looking at $4,500 for an overnight shift. Minimum. $4,500. It was an obscene amount of money. It was almost exactly the difference between the $6,000 I had paid my mother and the cost of the gala tickets she had bought with my money. The math was so poetic it felt like justice. Book it, I said. Card on file. Use the Amex Black ending in 7704. I said. The one under Cynthia's name. I'm the authorized user. My mother had added me to the account 3 years ago so I could handle the logistics of her anniversary party, booking caterers, florists, and venues. She had never removed me because she liked having a personal assistant who could solve problems on the fly. Well, she had a problem now, and I was solving it. Done, the dispatcher said. They're rolling out. I'm generating the invoice and the liability waiver now. Since this is a rental property, do you want us to copy the homeowner on the insurance certificate? It's standard procedure for high liability weather events. I paused. My thumb hovered over the phone screen. If I said yes, the owner of this lodge would get an email at 8 p.m. on Christmas Eve, notifying them that a tactical nanny team was entering their property. It would be annoying for them. It might even cause my mother a headache with her host, forcing her to explain why she left 5 kids alone in a storm. It felt petty. It felt perfect. Yes, I said. Send the full liability breakdown to the registered homeowner's email. I want everything by the book. I hung up the phone. I didn't feel guilty. I felt efficient. I walked to the bunk room and repacked my bag. I took the cashmere sweaters I hadn't unfolded. I took the book I hadn't opened. I walked back into the kitchen, poured the rest of my mother's vintage red wine down the sink, and rinsed the glass. I wasn't stealing. I wasn't abandoning anyone. I was simply outsourcing the labor she had assigned to me. At the market rate she refused to pay. 30 minutes later, headlights cut through the whiteout. A massive, treaded all-terrain vehicle rumbled up the driveway, looking more like a tank than a shuttle. 3 women in gray tactical gear stepped out. They didn't look like Mary Poppins. They looked like they could defuse a bomb while burping an infant. I let them in. I handed them the list of allergies and the schedule my sister had left. The parents are at the winter gala, I told the lead nanny. They'll be back late. You have full authority. Understood, she said. Already organizing the chaos. I walked out into the cold. The wind hit me like a physical blow, stealing the breath from my lungs. But the air was clean. I waded through the snow to my SUV. It was a beast of a machine. Lifted, with studded tires that I kept specifically for mountain site visits. My mother had asked to borrow it earlier. My car is terrible in the snow. She'd laughed. I'll take yours if the weather turns. I unlocked the door and climbed into the driver's seat. The leather was freezing. I started the engine, watching the dashboard light up. I wasn't just taking my car. I was taking their only way down the mountain. I shifted into gear and began the slow crawl down the driveway. I was halfway to the main road when my phone buzzed on the center console. It wasn't my mother. It was the nanny agency. I answered, expecting a confirmation or a question about the kids.